Cool. Oopsie. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. How are you guys? Good? Okay, awesome. Well, my name is Julian Placino, and for the past 10 years, I've been working in the field of professional recruitment and staffing. And over the course of my career, I've had the great privilege of having successfully helped advance the careers of hundreds of individuals in a multitude of different disciplines. And today I work for a company called Bottle Rocket Studios. We make high-profile apps for mobile devices, and I oversee the hiring organization for this company. And just in the past year, we've hired 80 employees. And each of these individuals, we went through specific negotiations. So as you can see, the topic of conversation today is how to negotiate a job offer once you actually get it. So here's the agenda. So the desired outcome is tonight will be successful if we're able to arm you with the necessary tools to get you the best offer the market will bear for your particular skill set. So I take a very principled approach, and the purpose of this is to get you the absolute best market offer that the market will bear for your background and your skill set. Okay, so here's the agenda and the 4 points that we're going to be going over. First, we're going to establish a baseline. It's really important to be very crystal clear on your offer goals to figure out what exactly that you need. And it doesn't really serve you to work from a standpoint of being nebulous. The more clear you have on your specific financial goals, the better off you are. And then the second point, really, we work at an incredible age right now where you can do quite a bit of salary research and know exactly what you're supposed to make. So we'll talk about a few different ways that you can gauge the market salary to make sure you're getting the best offer possible. And then we'll go over some basic general negotiation guidelines. Again, I've been doing this stuff for quite some time. There really isn't a whole lot that I haven't seen. And I have sort of an interesting perspective from a candidate coaching perspective, as well as an employer perspective. So I know what works against me, and I know that's what's worked for me as well. So we'll talk about things about when to talk about money, what employers consider when they're actually creating an offer, and also how to create a counter offer if the one that you get is not acceptable to you. And we'll talk about some basic negotiation tips. And then lastly, we'll do a Q&A session. So this content that I put together for you guys is what I think is important for you, but really I want to hear the questions that you might have specifically about this content. So I know that you guys didn't see what the presentation was going to be about ahead of time, but again, it's about getting you the best offer that you can possibly get. So let's talk about establishing a baseline. So the most important thing to figure out when you first start going through this process is figuring out what you actually want. And there's 2 points that you need to know. What are you currently making, and what are you actually asking for? So there's 3 numbers that I typically coach candidates to have, which is number 1, your minimal acceptable number. So like, have you guys done exercises on kind of like your basic overhead and what your actual needs are when it comes to car payments and loan and healthcare and things like that? That's your basic minimum offer number that's acceptable to you. The second is an acceptable offer, and the last one is the ideal offer. So it's important to have kind of these boundaries, so once you get the offer, you know which direction to go about. So doing your research. So when it comes to getting offered, knowledge is absolutely negotiating power. So there's kind of macro and also individual variables that I think it's great for you guys to sort of explore. And the first piece is geography, industry, profession, and also specific companies. So in terms of geography, I actually do a lot of recruiting on the East and also the West Coast. And in some particular markets, there's almost like a 50% cost of living difference, like in California and also New York. So those are some of the things that you want to be aware of. Also, like industries, like everybody knows kind of like the oil industry is sort of in a weird spot right now. So it's important to know the kind of company that you're applying for and where they are in terms of like economic factors. And also the profession, the specific discipline that you have, and also specific companies. We'll show you how you can look inside the specific company that you're applying to and getting kind of a market salary. And lastly, individual variables. So degrees, certifications, years of experience, and also unique value propositions. These are things that absolutely move the needle when it comes to getting a higher offer. So here's the 3 kind of granddaddy sites that you should research like every potential offer that you get. So payscale.com, glassdoor.com, and also salary.com. And a great way to kind of go about this is to fill them all 3 out It's going to ask you a lot of questions about your years of experience, any kind of degrees that you have, and also it'll spit out a kind of market average for that particular role that you're applying for. So if you do 3, you have 3 data points that you could use for negotiating power. Does that make sense? Cool. And also specialized recruiting firms. Have you guys ever dealt with like recruiters before? You have? What kind of recruiting agency was it?
I dealt with Tradesmen International.
Okay. Okay.
Recruiters.
And they specialize in which particular profession do they staff?
Hiring skilled trade.
Hiring
For
skilled trade.
shipyard, welders, shipyard industry.
And that's what they do like all day long, right? Like in
Yeah,
terms of
pretty
what
much
they
so.
hire for?
Correct.
So that's a great kind of market pulse in terms of what is the current salary. So you can easily call those recruiters and say like, hey, how much is this particular job paying for?
That's exactly what I did.
Exactly, so that's real market intelligence that you can use to leverage offers.
And I also asked them how much is per diem they're paying for a particular job, depending on
Yeah.
what's that. So I do ask them rate of pay. And I
Yeah.
also do my research before I call them up, so I can make,
Exactly, you're kind of like, sort of like getting data points for your data, which is really cool. So great, that's awesome. So yeah, there's specialized recruiters basically for any kind of skill set out there, whether you're creative or nursing or any kind of job out there. You can just Google X profession and then recruiters, and you can talk to these specific agencies, and all they do all day long is hire for that particular discipline. And they're also, so they're a really great place to start in terms of market data points for particular salary ranges. And then lastly, there's actually ways that I've coached candidates before to actually talk to existing employees of that company. So you want to get down to like the super granular. There's ways of asking people without being impolite or rude, like what to kind of expect. And a word track that I've coached some people to use is, hey Joe, I'm currently interviewing with XYZ company. If I accept an offer with them, what kind of salary range would I expect? So that's also a great way to know if the offer that you're getting is absolutely fair market. Does that make sense? Cool. So when to start talking about money? And the truth is it really kind of depends. There's a lot of general wisdom out there that says, don't be the first one to say the number. And I think that's a good way to kind of establish for a best practice, but it really depends on the nature of the conversation. Are you desperately looking for a job, and are you active applying to a bunch of different companies, or is an employer calling you and recruiting you proactively for a specific need that they have? All those factors kind of depend in terms of like who needs to say the number first. But for a basic principle, I'm assuming for us here in this room, let the employer sort of guide that conversation. So what if they ask you about your current salary? So all day long, whenever I'm interviewing candidates for a job at BottleRocket, I go through the same things over and over and over again. It's a systematic process. I go by the acronym MSLOMAC. That's motivation, skills, location, opportunity, money, availability, and culture. So every single call that I make to a candidate, I find out how much money that they're asking, right? But I know from a candidate side, from an exploratory perspective, a lot of them aren't really comfortable giving that information out. So there's a way to kind of sidestep that information, and I'll show you a couple word tracks here. But when they do ask you for a specific number, you really cannot lie about that. I have asked many times for candidates to provide specific pay stubs to make sure what they're telling me is actually accurate. Does that make sense? So if you really don't want to tell the current number that you have, you could say something like, I'm willing to entertain any reasonable offer. Or I'm looking for a market rate that is suitable for someone with my background and level of experience. And love, I'll email you these slides also so you can share with them. So I know like some of these word tracks you're not going to memorize off the top of your head, but when you need them at a future time, you'll have these slides to go back to. Is that cool? So usually by the second time that you say that, the employer is kind of getting the flag that you don't really want to talk about that. So depending on how they go about it will depend on kind of your next response. But honestly, if what you're asking for is a fair market value, I wouldn't be afraid of telling what number you actually have. Because usually, like I see that as kind of a candidate being uncooperative with me if they're not willing to share some information with me. Do you know what I mean? So what employers consider when creating an offer? So like I said earlier, when I speak to candidates, I ask for the same things over and over. And the first one is, what are you currently making? And also, what are you asking for? To me, that's kind of revealing to a candidate. Whenever they tell me what they're making and what they're asking for, I'm always curious to see why they think they're worth so much more value. And also the relevancy of your background and also personality fit. So in professional hiring, there's kind of the art and the science that hung in the food, right? So the technical side is like, can the individual actually do the job? Do they have the required skills to do the particular position and solve the need for that particular business? And the second thing is the personality fit. chances are there's going to be a lot of people that can do that particular job you're applying for, but are they someone you could go have a beer with, or like hang out with on the weekend, or stay late with? Is it something that you can stomach? So those are the things that go into valuation for a particular, for an offer. So also individual variables like degrees and certifications, years of experience, the more of this kind of stuff that you have, the higher market value that you can yield and also ask when it comes to having an offer. And the unique value propositions piece, so this is, almost every company out there is very sensitive about salary numbers, right? So if you could ever prove objectively that you have saved a company money or streamlined some kind of process, that's absolutely gold. Because if you could do it for another employer, you could do it for a future one. So any kind of data metrics showing how you made something one way and you made it great, that's absolutely awesome to share during the interview process, and also helps you yield a higher value. So here's some of the things of internal constraints, so things that are kind of outside of your control, but every company for the most part considers these whenever we make an offer. So the first one is a budget, right? So just like every other category that companies have, there's some type of CFO or chief accounting person, and typically there's some kind of yearly budget established. And in that budget are actual hiring numbers. So there are limits to what an employer can actually offer you when it comes to creating an offer. Also, there's headcount goals, and also existing employee salaries. So if I'm talking to a candidate who is asking for, let's say, $45,000 a year, and my entire staff is making like 30K, do you see how that becomes kind of an outlier, that this individual might not necessarily be the fit for me? So negotiation a lot of times is kind of a dance to kind of test the waters to see what you're making, what the employer is willing to offer, and that's why it's also kind of important to have those initial number conversations up front so you don't waste anyone's time. Does that make sense? Cool. The last point I want to make when it comes to what employers consider when creating an offer is, who are they actually interviewing? Like whenever we have a position, we interview like maybe 15, 20 people for a particular job. And that way, we can choose from choices and find out who's the best technical and culture fit at the specific budget that we have. So yes, I'm going to show you guys how to like ask for more money, but there are absolutely internal constraints that companies have that you should take into consideration when it comes to creating a counter offer. So they make you an offer, great. So the purpose of this discussion here is how to negotiate the best offer you can. Not necessarily to nail an interview. I can certainly do another training on that at another time. But that's really a huge deal already, right? You have an offer, so now what? So in my early career, when someone presented with me an offer, I always felt obligated to like accept it like right on the spot, like it was just going to go away, right? Well, kind of the best practice that I've learned from negotiating against candidates and also negotiating for myself is it's okay not to accept the offer right as you make it. If anything, you should take some time to evaluate it against your particular goals. Those 3 numbers that I mentioned earlier, see where that number is and where does it fall within your sliding scale. Because it's going to depend in terms of your action on where that number comes in against your goals, right? So it's okay to say something like, and also when it comes to negotiating the offer, salary is one thing, right? But there's so many other things like a benefits package and things like that. Like I know very specifically that some companies have expensive costs of insurance. You might actually get a higher salary, but your net take home might actually be less. So in addition to salary, make sure to evaluate kind of the benefits coverage, the per diem, like this gentleman here, so I'm sorry, what is your name?
Mark.
Mark, I'm Julia, pleased to meet you. Mentioned, so all the things in addition to just a number. And here's kind of a word track that you could use also. You could say something like, thank you for the offer. I'm very excited about the possibility of joining your company. Would you allow me 24 hours to review the details and make sure this is the best decision for my family and me? So it has never turned me off when somebody says, I'd like to speak with my spouse or with my family to make sure this is the best thing for me. There's nothing arrogant about this. And a lot of times it's the spirit of the negotiation and the way that you say things will also determine how an employer reacts. Does that make sense? Cool. So how to create a counteroffer. So the first step that we said already, establish those 3 numbers and also see where it came in compared to your goals, because wherever it did will depend your course of action. So here's the thing. You can pretty much ask for anything you want as long as you are falling within your research guidelines and also you can explain objectively why you think you're worth that value. So here's kind of the word track, right? So thank you for this offer. I'm very excited about the possibility of joining your company. But based on my research, at least from 3 very similar companies, the market range I'm finding is this particular number. Would it be possible for us to negotiate this rate a little bit closer to what I found the market value to be? So whatever that, after the 3 dots is going to depend on whatever that particular situation is, right? But do you see how you can use this effectively without kind of turning off the employer? And you can do this either by phone or by email. I've negotiated all sorts of different ways. So if they just won't budge on salary, there's a lot of different things that come with a full-time job. And I'm assuming and I'm sorry, what are the different disciplines that we're going after here? Like let's start with you, sir. What is your name?
Andrew.
Andrew. Andrew, nice to meet you. What are you studying for?
Pharmacy technician.
What's that?
Pharmacy technician.
Pharmacy technician. Okay, very cool.
Nursing.
Nursing?
Nursing.
Nursing?
Fabrication.
Okay. Nursing also. Okay, great. Well, yeah, I know. Well, my aunt is a nurse, and I know for a fact that she's so highly sought after. There's a lot of things that she could negotiate, right? So if they won't move on, let's say the salary, you can ask for a bonus or a sign-on bonus, and you don't have to be arrogant about it. You can say things like, "Do you guys offer any kind of sign-on bonus?" And that bonus, we talked earlier about kind of the budgeting process, right? Bonuses typically come from a different pool that salaries do. So some employers have flexibility when it comes to creating a bonus versus increasing your salary. A lot of times employers are more apt to do this than increasing your salary because your salary is overhead to that company. Does that make sense? Okay. So extra paid vacation days, cell phone reimbursement, work from home, expedited salary review, paid certifications, and also educational opportunities. Are they willing to pay for additional certifications or send you out to conferences? There's a lot more value that you can negotiate out of an offer than just the salary. Does that make sense?
And one more thing.
Yeah, what's that?
Do they offer Christmas turkey?
What's that?
Do they offer a Christmas?
Do they offer Christmas turkey? Yeah, no, absolutely. Companies do all sorts of crazy perks like that. So, So another good point to also say. So let's say that they won't budge on the salary. There's nothing wrong with saying something like, if I do an extraordinary job in the next 3 to 6 months, would you be willing to renegotiate my salary at that point? And if they say yes, perhaps ideally in some type of written medium, you have the opportunity then to go back to them and say, hey, what do you think I'm doing? But you also have to be awesome and provide value and have objective points about it, right? So negotiation tips. So always approach a negotiation with a spirit of amicability and also humility. It serves no one to be combative. So every offer that I've ever negotiated against a candidate who was amicable and also backed up why they're asking for more money with sound logic, I've always let through. But I have never, ever given somebody what they wanted if they're coming at me all demanding and all high and mighty and everything, right? Because like I said, what you say is one thing, but the way that you approach a situation is absolutely another, right? So if an employer makes you an offer, it means that they want you. So I know from a recruitment perspective, a lot of times, when I have to hire for a position, I have to do it quickly. So there's a lot of heat on you, right? So if I'm making a candidate an offer, I want to close that candidate. I want to fill this position. I want to solve the need of the organization. So there's definitely a little bit of pressure on the employer also when it comes to any kind of hiring situation. So don't be afraid to ask for more as long as you request with humility and also sound logic. Use your research, the more specific data points that you can provide, and those individual variable points also, like the certifications, degrees, years of experience, that kind of thing, those are all really important when it comes to asking for more money. So keep that in mind. But also rest assured that employers also do have walkaway points, so be mindful of not to ask for too much or to push too hard. Really, when it comes to a negotiation, it's not like this crazy thing that you see in the movies where they go back and forth 5 or 6 times. It's really once or twice, and that's pretty much it. Anything more, I start to get the sense that this candidate really doesn't want this job. It sends some pretty bad flags. And remember that an offer accepted today is only a starting point. Keep in mind reviews and future bonuses. Prove your value and keep note of your accomplishments to negotiate further in the future. So your fate really is kind of your own. Once you start with an organization, if you really are adding value, for the most part, organizations are a meritocracy. They'll pay you for what you're worth. So start somewhere and work your way up, right? So like I said earlier, the more objective you can make a counter offer, the better. As long as you have supporting points and backed with sound logic, you can ask for basically whatever you want. Some employers have, like at BottleRocket, we have like a 60-day sort of check-in to see kind of how the individual's doing. So ask to see if they do that. Like if you accept an offer, like do you guys do any kind of reviews? And if so, would there be an opportunity based on my performance to kind of talk about our rate once again? Kind of covered that bullet points. And here is absolutely the best kind of leverage. It's other offers. And showing I'm not much for like creating a bidding war or anything like that, but if you do have an offer at hand, that's the market voting for you. And if you want a particular job and you have another offer that's a little bit higher, you can say, hey, this is a fantastic offer, but XYZ company actually already made me an offer at this particular amount. And do you see how that's powerful? Like for me, from an employer perspective, like the scarcity goes to me. It's like, man, I want this candidate, but now all these other companies are trying to hire him as well. That's a great way to ask for more money. It's kind of like, when you're shopping for cars, right? I bought a car here pretty recently, and I went to every Honda dealership and asked for the very same car. And I finally found one that actually gave me the right price, but I basically used them to kind of negotiate against each other. So when you're looking for a job, interview as many places as you possibly can. Get as many possible offers that you can get. And that's real market information that shows what your value and what you're worth. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, so in review, so we talked about the first step in a negotiation is knowing your specific goals. Where you're at and what do you want? And the second piece is to do your research. There really isn't anything that an employer can hide anymore when it comes to how much they pay and also what the market will bear for your particular skill set. And then lastly, we talked about some things on kind of what to leverage. Remember to back up your supporting statements with objective data points when it comes to asking for a counter. Questions? I know there's a lot of information in a short amount of time, and I talk fast, so what do you guys think?
Pretty much, you can look on the internet, do research about the company, including how much they're willing to pay, their rate of pay is, what they're offering. But most companies, you can compare the two, compare, like, different job searching.
Yeah.
They tell you rate of pay.
Yeah. Sometimes the job posting itself will have the salary in it, but that one that I showed you, Glassdoor, make sure to definitely write that one down, because in addition to salary numbers it gives you reviews, employee reviews of current employees and also past employees, and also even like some comments about what their interview process is and stuff like that. It's such an open book now in terms of companies that you can research beforehand. So Glassdoor, PayScale, Salary.com, I recommend Glassdoor is probably the best one that you can use to leverage.
So you say they give past employees, information of past employees that they typically...
These are employees themselves. This is not the company giving information. This is a neutral site, right? So it's like if you go to let's say Glassdoor, right, and just type in BottleRocket, type in my company, right? You'll see what current employees have said about us, and also past employers would have said about us, right? So it's not governed by the company. Good question.
Thanks.
Anything else? Okay, cool. Well, I know there was a lot of information. If you guys want to keep in touch with me, you can visit me at julianplacino.com and also shoot me an email directly at julian@julianplacino.com. Love, you already have the slides, so you can feel free to share it with them as well. So, all right. Well, thank you for your time and attention, guys. I enjoyed being with you tonight.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
How long are these things usually? I have no frame of reference.